The Warner Brothers conference room on the fourth floor of the Burbank Studio Administration Building had windows overlooking the backlot where they'd built a fake New York street for gangster pictures. And at 2:14 p.m. on a Thursday in November 1958, Frank Sinatra sat at the far end of a mahogany table looking at a script he'd been reading for the past 40 minutes, while five men watched him and tried not to look like they were holding their breath. Jack Warner sat at the head of the table, 76 years old, three-piece suit, watch chain. The man who'd built Warner Brothers from a Nickelodeon into an empire that produced 50 films a year and employed 3,000 people. Next to him sat Steve Trilling, head of production, clipboard in hand, taking notes nobody would read. Across from Trilling sat the film's director, Vincent Sherman, 52 years old, 16 pictures under his belt, a man who knew how to bring films in on budget and on schedule. Next to Sherman sat the screenwriter, whose name was Howard something and who looked like he wanted to disappear into the leather chair. And at the other end of the table, across from Sinatra, sat Lou Wasserman, Sinatra's agent, the most powerful man in Hollywood, a 6'4" German Jew who wore black suits and thick glasses and negotiated deals that changed entire studios. The script was called The Executioner, a crime drama about a mob enforcer who carries out hits for the organization, but slowly develops a conscience and considers turning informant. The role would pay Sinatra $250,000 plus 10% of the gross, the biggest deal he'd been offered since winning the Oscar for From Here to Eternity, and Warner Brothers had spent 3 months courting him for it, sending him the script, revising scenes based on his notes, promising him final cut on his musical numbers, guaranteeing him above-title billing. Sinatra finished reading, closed the script, set it on the table. "Page 47, he said. Warner leaned forward. "What about it?" "The scene where Johnny kills the shopkeeper, the one who won't pay protection money. What about it?" "It's written like Johnny enjoys it, like he gets pleasure from the violence." Sherman, the director, jumped in. "That's the character arc, Frank. He starts as a true believer, someone who thinks the violence is necessary, justified. Then over the course of the film, he realizes he's become a monster. That's the journey." Sinatra looked at him. "The audience has to believe the journey, and they won't believe it if they see him smile while he's killing someone. He doesn't smile. The script says he's coldly efficient. Coldly efficient is different from enjoying it. Page 47 makes it seem like he enjoys it." Howard, the screenwriter, spoke for the first time, voice tentative. "Mr. Sinatra, that's actually a crucial scene for establishing who Johnny is at the beginning. We need the audience to understand he's capable of real evil, so that later when he changes, the change means something. The audience will understand he's capable of evil by the fact that he kills people. You don't need to make him enjoy it." Warner stood up, walked to the window, looked down at the backlot. "Frank, let me explain something about this picture. We're making an anti-mob film, a film that shows organized crime for what it really is, brutal, destructive, evil. And to do that effectively, we need to show the brutality. We need the audience to be repelled by Johnny in the first act so they can be moved by his redemption in the third. I understand that, but there's a difference between showing brutality and celebrating it. We're not celebrating it, we're depicting it. The way it's written celebrates it. The way it's written makes Johnny look like a psychopath who happens to have a change of heart. I don't believe that character. I don't believe someone who enjoys killing suddenly develops a conscience." Trilling, the production head, checked his notes. "Frank, we've had 3 different psychiatrists consult on this script. They all confirmed the character arc is psychologically sound. Sociopaths can develop empathy under extreme circumstances. I'm not questioning the psychology. I'm questioning the execution. What would you change?" "I'd make Johnny conflicted from the beginning. He kills because it's his job, not because he likes it. The violence eats at him from day one. The film is about him finally admitting that to himself." Sherman shook his head. "That doesn't work dramatically. If he's conflicted from the beginning, there's no arc, no transformation. He's just a guy who eventually acts on feelings he already had. That's more honest. Honest doesn't mean dramatic. It does if you do it right." Warner turned from the window. "Frank, we're not making an art film here. We're making a commercial picture that happens to have a message, and commercial pictures need clear arcs. Hero starts one way, ends another way. The audience understands it. They buy tickets. We make money. That's the business." The business is also making films people remember, films that matter. And a film where the hero enjoys killing won't matter. It'll just be another crime picture. Wasserman, Sinatra's agent, had been silent this entire time, taking it all in. Now he spoke, his voice quiet and precise. "Gentlemen, can I suggest something? What if we shoot the scene two ways? One as written, one with Frank's interpretation. Then in editing, Jack can choose which version works better for the film." Warner looked at Sherman. Sherman looked at Howard. Howard looked at his script like it might have answers. "That's expensive," Warner said. "Two setups, two lighting schemes, essentially two different scenes. Adds half a day to the shooting schedule." "Half a day against a 42-day schedule," Wasserman said. "Negligible. It's not about the time, it's about the precedent. If we let Frank change scenes during production, where does it stop? Next he'll want to rewrite the ending. Then he'll want to replace the director. Then, Jack," Wasserman said, cutting him off with a tone that was polite but final, "Frank isn't asking to rewrite the film. He's asking for one scene to be shot in a way that doesn't compromise his understanding of the character. That seems reasonable. It's not reasonable if the scene doesn't work his way. Then use the other version, but at least give him the option." Warner sat back down. "Frank, let me ask you something. Do you want to make this picture?" "I want to make a version of this picture I can believe in." "That's not what I asked. I asked if you want to make this picture, as written, with the understanding that the script has been vetted by professionals, approved by the studio, and represents millions of dollars of investment." Sinatra looked at him for a long moment. "No." The room went silent. Trilling stopped taking notes. Sherman stopped looking at the script. Howard stopped breathing. Wasserman didn't move, but something in his eyes changed. "No," Warner said. "Just like that, no. Just like that. Frank, do you understand what you're turning down? This isn't some B picture. This is a major production. $250,000. 10% of the gross. Above title billing. A role that could get you another Oscar nomination. And you're saying no because of one scene. I'm saying no because that one scene tells me what you think this character is. And what you think this character is isn't what I think he should be. So change my mind, convince me, make your case." "I just did. That wasn't a case, that was an opinion." "My opinion is what you're paying for." Warner's face went red. "Your opinion is worth $250,000 if it's attached to a yes. It's worth nothing if it's attached to a no." Sinatra stood up. "Then it's worth nothing." He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair, put it on, adjusted the collar. Warner stood too. "Frank, sit down, we're not done here." "I'm done. If you walk out of this room, the offer is off the table. Permanently. I will not call you back. I will not renegotiate. You walk, you lose the biggest payday of your career." Sinatra looked at Wasserman. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Wasserman's expression didn't change, but he gave the smallest nod. "Jack," Sinatra said, "I've made 40 pictures. Some good, some bad, some I'm proud of, some I wish I could take back. And the ones I wish I could take back all have one thing in common. I did them for the money instead of the story. I'm not doing that anymore. You're not in a position to be that selective. Your last 3 pictures lost money. The records are selling, but the films aren't. You need this. Maybe, but I need to respect myself more. Jesus Christ, it's one scene. One interpretation of one character moment. Is your ego really so fragile that you can't accept someone else's vision? It's not ego, it's clarity. I know who this character is. And what's on page 47 isn't him." Sherman spoke up, frustrated. "Frank, you haven't even tried to play it as written. How do you know it won't work?" "Because I've been playing characters for 15 years. And I've learned to tell the difference between a character that rings true and a character that's written for effect. Effect is what makes movies work. Truth is what makes movies last." Warner walked around the table, stood in front of Sinatra, close enough that they could smell each other's cologne. "Frank, I've been making pictures since before you were born. I've worked with Bogart, Cagney, Edward G. Robinson, every tough guy in Hollywood, and you know what they all understood? They understood that the director directs, the writer writes, and the actor acts. They didn't question every scene. They didn't demand changes. They showed up, did their job, collected their check, and made great films. Times change. Not that much. Enough." They stood there, 2 men separated by a mahogany table and 40 years of different ideas about what movies should be. Finally, Warner said, "If you walk out of this room, you'll regret it." I've regretted a lot of things. I've never regretted saying no to something I didn't believe in, even when saying no cost you, especially then. Sinatra walked toward the door. Wasserman stood, collected his briefcase. Jack, thank you for the meeting. I think we all understand where everyone stands. Warner didn't respond. He just stood there watching Sinatra leave, watching $250,000 walk out the door. The door opened, closed, they were gone. Steve Trilling looked at his notes, realized they were meaningless, set down his pen. Vincent Sherman stared at the script like it had betrayed him. Howard, the screenwriter, looked like he might cry. Jack Warner walked back to the window, looked down at the backlot, at the fake New York street where they'd shot 100 gangster pictures, where they'd made 100 deals with 100 actors, where the business had always worked the same way. Studio offers money, actor says yes. Movie gets made, everyone profits. Except Frank Sinatra had just said no, and Warner couldn't decide if he admired that or hated it. 3 days later, Warner Brothers offered the role to Anthony Quinn. Quinn read the script, loved it, signed immediately. They shot the film in 39 days, came in under budget, released it in June 1959. It made back its investment but didn't become a hit. Critics called it a competent crime drama with moments of power but lacking emotional depth. The scene on page 47 was noted by several reviewers as unnecessarily brutal and hard to watch without questioning the character's later transformation. Vincent Sherman directed 19 more films but always considered The Executioner a missed opportunity. If Sinatra had done it, he said in 1972, it would have been different, better. He understood something about the character I didn't see until it was too late. Howard, the screenwriter, revised page 47 for the Quinn version, making the killing scene less gleeful, more mechanical. But he always wondered what Sinatra would have done with the original, how he would have found the truth in a scene Howard thought needed to be exaggerated to work. Lew Wasserman negotiated 100 more deals for Sinatra over the next decade, each one bigger than the last. But he never forgot the Warner Brothers boardroom. He told a young agent in 1968, "Most clients, you fight for more money. With Sinatra, you fought for creative control. And if you couldn't get creative control, you walked. Because Sinatra would rather make nothing than make something he didn't believe in. That's not ego, that's integrity. And integrity is the only thing in this business that can't be bought or sold." Jack Warner ran Warner Brothers until 1967 when he sold the studio for $32 million. He produced thousands of films, launched hundreds of careers, created an entertainment empire. But he never worked with Frank Sinatra, not because he held a grudge, but because Sinatra had made it clear. You don't hire Frank Sinatra to execute your vision. You hire him to bring his. And if you can't accept that, you don't hire him at all. Frank Sinatra made 6 more films over the next 3 years. None of them paid $250,000. None of them offered 10% of the gross. None of them came close to the deal he walked away from at Warner Brothers. But every single one was a film he believed in. Every single one let him play characters the way he understood them. And when people asked him about turning down The Executioner, he gave the same answer every time. It wasn't the right fit. Nothing more. No explanation. No regret. No second guessing. Just 5 words that said everything about who Frank Sinatra was and what he wouldn't compromise. The Warner Brothers conference room is still there. 4th floor, same mahogany table, same windows overlooking the backlot. Different executives sit in those chairs now, making different deals, negotiating different contracts. But the essential transaction hasn't changed. Money for performance, security for compliance, success for surrender. Most actors say yes. Some say no. And very few say no when saying yes would solve every problem they have. Frank Sinatra said no. On a Thursday afternoon in November 1958, he walked away from $250,000 and 10% of the gross because one scene didn't ring true. And nobody in that room, not Jack Warner, not Vincent Sherman, not even Lew Wasserman, could tell if he was the smartest man in Hollywood or the most self-destructive. 30 years later, The Executioner played on late-night television, a forgotten crime drama that looked like every other crime drama from that era. And from here to eternity, the film Sinatra had made for $8,000 because he believed in the character, was preserved in the National Film Registry as culturally significant? Maybe that's the answer. Maybe Sinatra knew something the men in that conference room didn't. That careers are built on the films you make, but legacies are built on the films you refuse to make. Would you have accepted the $250,000 and shot the scene as written, trusting the director's vision and the studio's expertise, and the three psychiatrists who said the character arc was sound? Or would you have stood up at 2:14 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon and walked away from the biggest payday of your career because one scene on page 47 didn't feel true to who you believed the character was?